Hey, how's it going, guys? Hope you're all good. Welcome to the first, or should I say second actually, iteration of the series. Today we'll be focusing on inputs and outputs, so let's get started. So firstly, in C++, we work with the terms known as sin and cout. Sin for input, cout for output. And we work with these things called insertion and extraction operators. So I know those seem like really big words, but trust me, it's actually pretty simple. The symbol used to denote the insertion operator are two greater than signs, and for the extraction operator, two less than signs. So what exactly do these symbols mean? Well, it actually makes really good sense, and we can see this in an example. So if you had sin insertion operator x, it would mean that the value inputted would be stored in variable x, and we can see that with the direction of the insertion operator. If you had cout extraction operator x, it would mean that the value x would be outputted, and similarly, we can see that with the direction of the extraction operator. So now, with those terms explained, let's continue. Okay, so before we jump into cin and cout, we first have to look at the basic structure of a C++ program, and we would normally start by declaring our IO stream. So you would do that by saying hashtag include, and in between a less than sign and a greater than sign, you would say IO stream. And this is a C++ standard library header file for input and output streams. It includes functionality to read and write from streams, which is our cin and cout. Then we would want to go to the next line and say using namespace std. Now this is not necessary, and I will get into the details of that later, but for now, this by using namespace you can define the context in which names are defined, in this case std, which is the standard library for C++. And with those two declared, we can move on to our main function, and to declare our main function it would be int main two brackets, and outside those two brackets, two curly brackets, enter. And what this integer main, what it is, it's the entry point of a C++ application. So if we use int main, it will return an integer value as return, which brings me to my next point. So we're gonna wanna use return 0 at the end of your main integer, and this is used to return a value, and after it returns something, it finishes execution. The return 0 means it was a success, and return 1 means the opposite. And that's basically the template which we're going to be using for most of the applications that we're going to be creating. Okay, now we want to create our first program. So for tradition, we'll do a HelloWorld program. So we're going to go ahead and come up here, and because we want to output hello world, we're going to use cout, our extraction operator, and then two quotation marks, and hello world. Don't forget your semicolon. It's quite a simple mistake that many people make. So once we have this, we can go ahead and save our file, Control S, or whatever save function you're using on your IDE or editor, and we're going to want to compile this now. Because we are running C++, it's a compile language, we have to use a compiler to compile it, then run the compile file. And we can do this by firstly opening cmd in the file directory. Now it's going to be different if you're using Linux or Mac OS, and I'm going to be doing this on Windows, so just take note of that. So we're going to go ahead and open cmd, and we're going to change our directory to wherever our .c++ file is. So mine is on the desktop, so I'm going to change my directory to the desktop. And now you're going to want to enter the command to start the compile. So that is g++-o. The name you want to give your file. I'm just going to say run program, and then the name of your .c++ file, which in my case is tutorial.c++. And then you can go ahead and click enter. And now that your application has been compiled, you can go ahead and run it. So if we go ahead and do run program, and enter. As you can see, we have Hello World. So that's our first successful application. Congrats. Okay, now let's say we want to take things to the next level. Let's say we want to take somebody's age and output that age. So firstly, we would want to ask the person what we want. So we're going to see out our operator and quotation marks and maybe what is your age. Okay, and end that with a semicolon. And then we would want to receive an input. So the way we would do that is first declaring what we want as a variable. Now because I want the age, that would be an integer, so we would want to define x as an integer and then into that x, and that would become our age. And then we can see out our operator, your age is, and we can put another operator, yes, this is possible, x, and now that would print, this should print, I forgot a semicolon, really important. Now this should print correct+. So now we're going to go ahead and save this file, open cmd, change our directory to where this is, g++ -o run program, and the name of your .c++ file, tutorial.c++, and now we can go ahead and run program. And as you can see, what is your age? So enter your age, enter, your age is 17. So that's been successful. So that's basically manipulating the couts and cins. Now another example would be, what if you want to take 2 inputs but it's taken as one separated by a space? Now that's really easy in C++ because C++ works with the whitespaces, and if you do not know what whitespaces are, this is basically it. So if you have y space y, this in between the 2 y's is your whitespace. Okay, so if we go ahead and try that, first declare our integers x, y. You can put a comma in between to declare more than one, so you can do x, y, z, I, carry on like that. You do not need to do int x, int y. You do not need to do them individually. You can declare them in one line. So we're going to do x, y, and we're going to say sin, our operator, x, and then you're going to use the operator again, y, and end with a semicolon. Now this will take the values and separate them by white spaces. So we can go ahead and just see out that, so you can see x, and we're going to end the line, end line, it'll just go to a new line, see out y, end line, forgot the L. We can go ahead and save this, and we can go ahead and compile it, going back to cmd, run the command, run program, and let's say we're going to say 20 and 45, hit enter, and as you can see 20 and 45 have been printed. So that is how you take input with spaces in between them. You do not need to loop through, you do not need to store it as a string and loop through it. You can just do this. So coming back to this, the end line, you do not necessarily have to use end line. You can use \n, and since \n is a char, we wouldn't use double quotes. You'd use single quotes and \n, and we can go ahead and save that and go back to our cmd, run our code there, and run program. 20 and 45, and as you can see, it's printed to a new line, and it skipped a line over here because we've stated that we want an end line at the end. If we take this out and if we save that, recompile, so run our program, 20, 45, and as you can see, that space at the end has disappeared. So that's basically how you can use /n. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, I want to come back to this, using namespace std. Now, this is usually bad practice to declare this, especially if you're working with a huge library of things, because you can mix the terminology with different libraries. So if you don't want to use this, you can go ahead and delete that line. But now, because you deleted that, you are declaring the namespace as std. So now you're gonna have to do that manually for each sin, because that's part of the standard library for C++. So you're gonna use the abbreviation std, and then put these two colons, and then sin, the function. And you would do the same for cout, and the last cout. And if you go ahead and save this, and if you go ahead and recompile and run it, 2045, as you can see, it's working. Now let me show you what happens if I delete one of them. And if we save that and try recompiling, as you can see, we've received an error because it does not know what sin is. Sin was not declared in the scope. Did you mean std sin? So there we go. Okay, and that's basically it for today's episode, and I believe I've thoroughly explained cin, cout, and the structure of a .c++ file. If you guys do have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. And to end today's episode, we can go ahead and compile this last application. So going to cmd, we can run our command, and we ended off with an error. The reality of programming. So I hope everybody realized what my error was, and if you didn't, it's totally fine. But it's because I did not declare my namespace std, and I'm using cout. So I would have to manually add my std, and on the end line, because that's part of the standard library for C++. And if I go ahead and save this and try to recompile and run the program, and it works. So that's it for today. Take care. See you guys in the next one. Peace.